What are we doing?
A little bit of a ride to get here?
A little bit of a ride. Flew in, just got off the bus. Are we rocking and rolling? Are we going?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Let's go, fire away.
Can you tell us about the development of Grunk over the course of the season, and especially in these last few weeks?
Yeah, well, I would tell you with Ethan, him, like a lot of our players, just totally committed to getting better every day. When you come in and it's your first fall in college football, expectations can be tempered a little bit, but with him, he has a great spring, and a spring kind of finishes up through the summer, and you start to watch him throughout fall camp, some of the throws he makes, and you get really excited about him and his arm talent and his abilities that he has. And now the experience that he's been getting with, being game ready and doing those kind of things is a big, big deal for us in our development. So I'm excited about his development, where he's going to go in his future.
The two teams in this game are running the ball really, really well at the end of the season. Can you speak to the importance of that in college football, being able to have that ground game when you get to this level?
Yeah, I think, we really need to be able to do both. If you want to play championship football, you got to be able to run the football well, you got to be able to stop the run, and you got to be able to throw the football. Right, and you'll be able to stop back. So for us, it's always about having balance. I'm super pleased that we've been running the ball as well as we have. Especially in the back half of the season, the way that our guys up front have done that. It speaks a ton to the development of that group. You look at our O-line play from week 1 to now. There's a ton of development that's occurred. And obviously we got some great backs, which make it all go as well. But it does start up front. So the blocking, lateral line, our tight end group is giving our running backs. It's a big deal. But then also, when we talk about running the football and passing, the fact that people have to kind of respect and honor, what's happening outside as well, because you just can't give us a bunch of freebies, because we'll be able to exploit that as well.
A lot of the questions in Notre Dame has been about your playbook, the sheer volume, just the eye candy motion, just how much chaos you create. What does that say, though, about Drew, your offensive players, to be able to bring that to fruition on the field?
Yeah, one of the things that we want to be able to do as an offense is create stress, for defense players and coaches. To answer your question specifically, well, it demonstrates their commitment to wanting to do those sort of things. It takes time to figure out how to line up Ty Warren in all these different spots, and it takes practice reps. It takes a commitment from them to want to spend energy and time studying those things before they come into the meeting room, which they've done. They've done that since the day I've arrived here. We want to do a lot of things. We want to own that period of time from when the one snap ends and the next one begins. So, and they understand that. They know that causes a ton of stress for opposing defenses. But it takes, there's a time investment in there. And so we have to feel like we're getting a return on what we're investing there. And the kids have to be able to do a lot of that beforehand, because you only spend so much time practicing that stuff. But it's been a total commitment from our guys to be able to be diverse that way. We want to be a really diverse offense.
Outside of Drew, who do you feel like is asked to do the most? Is it Tyler?
I would tell you I think our skill players in general, when you're lining up in all these different positions, you're lining up in all these different spots, there is a lot to be asked. But to your point, Drew and our quarterbacks, they have to be the straw that stirs the drinks. They have to know what's going on. They have to know the motion. They have to know the shift. They've got to be able to know the personnel and kind of who's going where. Our players have to be able to do that. He's going to be able to communicate the play effectively, so that occurs. But in general, our skill players need to be able to line up in those different spots. But that's what we want. We talk about having a multiple pro-style offense. And when you look at the NFL and you look at Sundays, you see teams, at least if they're playing well, you see teams figuring out creative ways to put their best players. And they don't just line up their best players at the outside receiver or just at the tight end position the whole time. They move them, they shift them, they do all these sort of things to help get open or help block, whatever it might be.
What has Julian meant to the wide receiver?
Well, he came in, and I think the work ethic in general for him has been one of the best things that we've observed, and he's had such a positive influence on our receiver room. Coming in, spending extra time catching footballs, doing things, the things that you just talked about in terms of getting lined up, getting different personnel, playing a different position on our offense. He's come in, in the year 2024 and just totally grabbed that and wanted to grow and do that. So he has been awesome in the sense of showing those guys by example how to work, spending time outside of practice, developing one of the most critical skills of a receiver, that's catching the football, and him demonstrating that to our players has been awesome.
When people don't see the stats from Liam or Julian in terms of catches. They wonder, what's going on there. Could you explain why they're so valuable out there and why they're getting those snaps, what they're doing so well?
Well, so that's a good question. So one of the things I show our offensive players is, and this is through my tenure as an offensive coordinator, I say, okay, you got really good players. How much are the best players touching the ball? So I spent some time and I looked in the NFL. And you have guys like Travis Kelce, just I'm throwing out some random big NFL names, okay? Tyreek Hill, all right? And you're like, well, what percentage of the time that they're in the field are they getting targeted, right? Or is the ball being given to them? And in my mind, I'm going to throw out an arbitrary number. I'm thinking 30, 40% of the time, 50% of the time. And the reality is players, your tight ends and receivers, they're touching the ball between 10 and 15% of the time. They're getting targeted. And so you illustrate what touching the ball a lot actually looks like. And then you point out that these are the highest paid players in the world at these positions. And 85% of the time, approximately, they're playing without the football. They're either doing something to block for somebody else, or they're running a route to get somebody else open. And so the game of football is still about the team. And so there's a lot of times even the best players have to do things that are unselfish. And the work that guys like Liam and Julian have done for us, it doesn't show up in the stat line all the time, but you can go back and you can look at a lot of long touchdown passes or plays that Ty Warren has made, and those guys are out there probably doing something to open up somebody else.
You've seen some pretty good secondaries this year. Is Notre Dame the best of them, and what do they do that makes them effective?
I don't know. It's hard. I don't want to make comparisons to, if they're the best or not. I was asked earlier about who do they compare. There's a few teams in our league I think that probably are similar from a personnel and scheme standpoint. But they're smothering. They don't give you anything. You know what I mean? They're going to play aggressive coverage. They're not going to let you have these easy off throws and kind of go out there and play catch and rally and tackle. They're going to make you earn all the yards that you're going to get, and that's what really sticks out on film with them.
Drew talked about how complicated the lexicon of your offense is. At what point did you feel that everybody kind of had it down, especially him?
Oh, I don't know. I would say by the end of spring football, I felt pretty good. Then I felt a lot better by the end of the summer, and I felt really good by the end of fall camp, going into games, the defining all those things and what they are. And it's just a series of tags, you know what I mean?
The Legos.
Legos, thank you. That's right. That's an analogy I use all the time. And so, guys, they learn it. They figure out what Lego pieces pertain to them and what they don't. Like the receivers probably don't really care about the protection very much, and the O-line don't really care much about the routes that are happening out there. But it's within that play, they're aware of what they have to do, to at least in their job to execute.
But in terms of building this offense over the course of not just this season but years, how important is it to have a conduit like Drew helping these younger
It's
QBs?
huge. Like the analogy before, the straw that's stirring the drink.
Right.
It's a big deal. The sooner he picks it up, the sooner he understands what it all means and how he communicates it to the players, the faster it is. We're trying to speak Penn State, right? Like we talked about, we don't want to call it this route or that route or this one. Speaks Penn State, so we're all speaking the same language about what we're trying to do. And a credit to him, he has worked and continues to work really, really hard at making sure he's an unbelievable communicator.
For opposing offenses, they can never obviously lose sight of Abdul Carter. Who is that for them on Notre Dame's defense? Who do you feel like you can't lose sight of? Or always have to know where he is?
Well, I don't know names very well, but some of the numbers are fine. Like the secondary, I think does a great job. Although they're not as much about a pressure. But the secondary, their D-line, they've had some injuries throughout the year. So when you look at film, some clips earlier, you go, "Oh, that kid not playing anymore." Number 99, I guess, was a hell of a player. 44 pops on film. It's really all of them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So you can't collectively sit there and go, "Oh, if only number 9 is out there, we got to worry about the rush off the left side." No, we're always prepared to help. Because they're deep, they're playing the semifinals for a reason too. You know what I mean? They got some good players running around, and they play great team defense. You know what I mean? They should be proud of what's on film, the way they run around, tackle. They complement each other well. The D-line knows what they're doing. The linebackers fit correctly, and the safety, the secondary fits off of that. And so all their puzzle pieces are in alignment.
Does that make it harder to game plan against when there's not necessarily somebody you're trying to avoid, when it's sort of coming from all over the place?
Yeah, you're right. That's the secret. Is having depth at all the positions. And hey, we can't pick on just this corner or that guy. You know what I mean? Like you have to be well rounded. You have to make sure you have an answer for all of it. It has to be a thorough game plan.
This season has obviously been a high point for your coaching career. What did he say about what this year has been to you, not just for the time at Penn State, but also in whatever opportunities might come about down the road?
Someone asked me after one of the games, me and Tom had our post-game press conference, and are you enjoying it? I go, we're so process-oriented, and I'd like to think that we're here, we're coaching at this place right now at Penn State, and we're playing in this game because that's what we are. We're put our head down, get to work, don't really worry so much about the results because the results are going to take care of themselves because we're so process-driven. It's hard, to me, like, you're asking a little bit about my career and job. Is it different when I was coaching a Division III football team? Yeah, there's a lot more coaches I coach with, but the reality is if we lost or I didn't do something right, it hurt just the same. You know what I mean? Or if we won a big game, it felt just the same. If you're a competitor, you really don't care how many people are in the stands. Right? If you're a true competitor, you're out there. You know what your job is. You know what your responsibility is. And you're going to go out there and make sure it's done the right way. And so it's hard for me to sit here and talk about, it's so much different than when I was calling plays when there was 300 people in the stands, you know what I mean, versus whatever, 100 and some thousand that we get in Beaver Stadium. And from a standpoint of criticism and praise, that kind of stuff, and everything, we didn't have press conferences like this when I was coaching at Whitewater or River Falls or the University of Mary, but you're so internalizing all of the, your process, right? Like your staff after a game, you're critical of yourselves more than anyone else could ever be. And you know what your strengths are and your weaknesses are because you've spent so much time together and so much time in practice. So it's a long-winded answer to your question about where am I at in my life and my career and what does that mean? I don't know, you know what I mean? It's kind of like what you're asking, I don't know. Hopefully I'm not on my deathbed right now and you're reflecting on my life, but I can just tell you, fundamentally, if you're a competitor, you really don't care where you're at, who you're playing in front of or against. And your opponent is always going to be yourself in your process.
You mentioned being so into the process. Do you ever worry about not taking enough time to kind of enjoy what's going on?
You know what? You can probably yes, I do. Okay, I think every coach probably worries that they don't get to enjoy it because you're so focused on the process. But that's why we do what we do, right? That's what it is, and so. You have to learn to enjoy it. I talk to people, recruits and stuff like that. There's a lot of great things about Penn State. But the reality is if you want to be an ultimate college football player, you got to learn to fall in love with the process of daily improvement. You just have to learn to get better every day. You have to like that. You have to enjoy what that means. And again, the winning, the byproduct is really a byproduct of how you do things, how much you play, your personal accolades will all be a result of how much you love the process of getting better.
How's your family handled the last 13 months? Because you've basically not been able to come up for air since you arrived on campus.
No, that's fair. My wife, Lindsay, my son, Max, my daughter, Jo, are handling it awesome. They came on the trip here again this week. They're a savior. My wife is the DFO. She's the director of all the family operations. She allows me to coach, and I mean that, right? Like if she told me tonight, "Hey, I want you to stop coaching," I'd hang it up right away. But she knows that we do what we do for a reason, and I think she loves that the kids get to see someone who loves their job every day, and not a lot of kids can say that, right? A lot of people wake up and their mom or dad go to work and they don't really have an unfulfilling job, and at least they're not making it fulfilling. And I get to wake up and go to be the offensive coordinator at Penn State, and that's pretty freaking cool. So my family's been awesome. They've handled it really, really well.
Coach, given this time of year, it's hard to prep for a team. It's only pre-prep, right? You didn't know who you were going to play before last week. Do you think the complexity of your offense gives you an advantage then because teams have a lot to prepare for when you're on your team?
That's a good question. Yes, right. I think it'd give us an advantage every week. I think people who are great at their craft, they're kind of always studying from a big overview in the off season. They're kind of aware maybe a little bit of what the trends are in college football, one way or the other. So I would anticipate our opponents are versed in the kind of things that we do, and they've studied it, and they might do some of that themselves. But we do what we do because we think it is stressful for a defense to defend. And so you hope on a short week, that it helps out a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, it's just a typical week. It's still another week, And when their game was over, I promise you on the way home, they were probably watching Penn State, just like we were when I got in and said, okay, when's the game on? And you're sitting there, you're watching it, you're taking notes on both teams until you figure out that we're playing, Notre Dame.
Coach, your frame of reference for this rivalry itself, you mentioned Notre Dame. What is your understanding of this rivalry? They played against each other for many, many years, and obviously going up against the former Nittany Lions captain and defensive coordinator Alabama.
My frame of reference for it is that I know, like back in the 80s, they were often competing for number one AP polls. There's a ton of Nittany Lion alumni that are out there coaching. Coach Golden being one of them. I got a ton of respect for what he's done on the defensive side of the ball there and his career in general. And it's cool since I've been able to join here the staff. My access to the alumni base. And specifically in the coaching world, is really, really pretty impressive. So, specifically these two, they're two blue blood schools, right? Whatever that means to some people. But if someone said, "Hey, these two schools are going to play in the national title or semifinal game," people would, well, first of all, they'd be like, "What year is it?" You know what I mean? Because that's how long the tradition is for these kind of schools. So it's really cool.
Anybody have one more? Coach, the pressure packages that Notre Dame uses, how difficult is it to diagnose that they're going to do pre-snap?
Yeah, they do a good job of timing up snap counts and things like that. That's very evident on film. Again, similar to what I had said earlier about them being pretty holistically sound, from the front end to the back end. In itself is a challenge, but so the things that they do are very complementary. They don't run just these one-off packages. They run this package because it complements this package and attacks that protection and benefits maybe this player in their football team. So. Again, you're at this stage in college football, they're going to be pretty good on defense. You know what I mean? They're going to be well coached. They're going to have good players, and they're going to run good schemes that are sound. And I would expect nothing less.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Andy.
Appreciate you guys.
We're going to go to the next side.